We have Tracey Shepos here. She is the executive chef at Kendall Jackson and for the entire Jackson Family Wines brand, which is so exciting. It's well, you got a big promotion last year, Tracey. Do you want to talk about that a little bit to start?
Yeah, I mean, it always, whenever I say it out loud or hear it out loud, it feels very like heavy in a good way. Like, oh, there's lots of responsibility there. um, yeah, I mean, I took over the program last year, but I've been working for Jackson Family Wines now I'm on year 14. So I always say, like, I really did drink the juice. But it's good juice. So
Delicious juice, yes.
it's really, really good juice. It's worth drinking. Yeah, I mean, it's a program that I've been a part of for 14 years and have helped to grow and I have been a part of managing for years. And so we just made some changes within the company. And so I became the sole responsibility of running our culinary program. And it has been, I mean, it's a whirlwind, but it is amazing. It's just really, it's such a cool job. And I'm surrounded by a crazy talented group of people. So, as hectic and crazy as my job is, all of those things make it easier and really just so likable and enjoyable and make me excited to go to work every day.
Well, you certainly work in one of the most beautiful settings, I think anywhere in the world, Sonoma County, just north of Santa Rosa. And right amongst the vineyards. You want to talk a little bit about the tasting room and the facility there and what you have to work with in your garden?
Yeah, we're pretty spoiled here. I mean, we've got, like I said, great wines and a beautiful chateau tasting room. But really, like the thing that all of those things are wonderful. And right, we're in farm country, so we're close to great cheesemakers and we're close to the coast and farmers. And so we've got so many just like natural resources at our disposal. But at Kendall Jackson proper, we take it even further and we have a 3.5-acre culinary gardens. And we just recently added on like 6 greenhouses. So when you think about things that chefs love, right? Things that we want at our disposal, having produce 10 feet outside the back door of your kitchen, it does not get any better than that. Mm-hmm. And so we have that. And not only do we have these items, they are the highest quality, most perfect, beautiful vegetables I've ever seen in my life, I've ever had the privilege of using and cooking with. So we always we have a motto. We have many mottos in our kitchen, but one of them is, how do we not mess up what we're given, right? And that's kind of that motto is largely based on what we get from our garden, because these vegetables are so outrageously wonderful and beautiful and delicious that we don't have to do too much to them, nor do we want to. We don't want to coat them up with too much of other flavor, because a lot of people have never actually eaten something like a carrot right from the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's really different, right, than when you go to Safeway or your local grocery store and you get something like a carrot. That's what you think a carrot's supposed to taste like. But then when you have one that's freshly grown from your garden and you eat it hours after it's come out of the soil, it is mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it is. And I mean, this garden, I mean, for all you people out there that maybe have not gone to the Kendall Jackson Wine Center, it's phenomenal. And you can take walking tours through, all of this amazing produce, and you can learn directly from the gardening team about, why certain things grow best in certain times of the year in that climate, and why your team has chosen some of these produce varieties, specific to marry into dishes to match with your wines, because that's your goal, right? Is making the wine shine with food pairings, alongside. I think one of the coolest things about your beautiful property, and specifically your produce garden, are the farm to table dinners that you guys put on every summer. You want to talk about those a little bit? Because that's really the best way for guests to come in and experience the culinary side of all of your beautiful work.
Yeah, it really is a special experience. We love doing them, and we wish that the weather was perfect enough to be able to do them year round. Mm-hmm. But it's an opportunity for guests to come to Kendall Jackson. We have this really beautiful reception, but it's also all about the gardens. And so we set up a really long table down the center of our garden, and people come in and they can enjoy this reception in the middle of the garden. So you're standing around the food that's being grown and then you're eating that same food. And you sit down and it's really social because it's family style at this long table, and we serve food in a family style way. So it's very, everybody's kind of including each other, and it's just so much fun. And I don't know anywhere else where you can literally have a plate of, say, a beautiful beet salad, and then you turn behind you and not 2 feet away, the beets are growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that connection, right? I sometimes take it for granted, right? Because I live it every day. I'm here and it's part of my everyday world. But so many people, especially people that are coming from outside of California, people don't think about food this way because it's not in front of their faces the way that it is for us. And so it's really, really cool to be able to give people the opportunity to have that connection. Oh my gosh, that's what that looks like when it's growing. Oh, I've never seen beet greens. Wow, they grow underground. And then there's, oh my gosh, now you've made this beautiful dish with these beets. It's kind of like, people don't think about food that way very often.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I love that. You are really, truly a connector in people's minds, and that education goes so far with, not only did the marketing and selling of the products that we're all making here in this region, but in sending people home with just a better, deeper understanding and why it's worth spending a little bit more money when you can buy direct from the farmer and have that dialogue and that conversation with them at their farmers markets, or at their specialty store about, why things are being grown and when and how and the practices behind it all.
Yeah, and the idea, right? We're so for that. That's exactly what we're promoting. And the idea behind it, right, is like, yes, right now those things are more expensive, but the more we do it, right, the more we support, the more we buy those products, it'll become more the norm. Yeah, and that's absolutely what we want. We want organic to not seem like it's something special. We want organic to be what you just buy. Or seasonality. It's so how we cook. We always start with the wine, and then the second thing is what's growing in the garden, which is of the season. So we're not eating or serving tomatoes right now in February because they're not growing, but two, they're just not good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can go to the grocery store and you can buy a tomato, but it's not tasty. And why not focus on the things that are really delicious right now?
Absolutely.
And then tomatoes, all those things will come back around. I mean, as chefs, it's really exciting because we focus so much on that seasonality. Is that not that I forget, but every season I get excited for what's coming because I really haven't used it since last year. So we're coming up on spring. It doesn't completely feel like it today because it's freezing, but like spring is around the corner. And when we start seeing fava beans and English peas, I get giddy. Right, I get like and asparagus, and I get so excited, and I get
you miss them
because they're so delicious at that point. And it's a small window, right? At the most, it's 3 months. Sometimes with seasonal vegetables, it's an even shorter window with certain things. And so, like, I savor them in a different way. I appreciate them in a different way, and then they go away. And even though I'm bummed, well, but look what's around the corner: corn and tomatoes and peaches. And so I'm like, okay, great. Like, give me something else delicious. And so, following that natural cycle of what Mother Nature is producing for food too, you're really getting the best quality of that product.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I should kind of probably back up a little bit. We've been friends for a long time now. Gosh, I don't even know. Probably all 14 years of your time at Kendall Jackson.
Easily,
we've been working together. And that's largely because when you first came on board there, you were kind of identified as the cheese expert. So let's talk about that. What started your love of cheese and your commitment to really be an ambassador of our Northern California cheese community in all the work that you do and you present at KJ?
Yeah, I mean, I've always just loved cheese, and as a chef, it's pretty cool because you can be a chef, and then you can have different avenues that you may want to pursue as a maybe some chefs are like really into mushroom foraging, and maybe someone's really into bread baking or pasta. And for me, cheese has kind of been that thing that is kind of like the icing on the cake for my profession. And when I moved to Sonoma County 24 years ago, it was like a whole new world was opened up for me as far as cheese, because I'd always loved cheese before, but I had never lived anywhere or been in a place where I could really like deeply learn about cheese in a bigger sense. It wasn't just about eating cheese. It was about being really close to people that were making cheese and being in a community where I could like go deep on that. And so, I did exactly that. It was just so interesting to me. And so I really started working on cheese programs wherever I was at. I was a chef at Willie's Wine Bar at that point, and I wanted a cheese, and I wanted a cheese plate on that menu. And so they said, okay, go ahead, go for it. And just through my own natural like sense of education, I started learning more and more about cheese. So when I started working with KJ, I mean, wine and cheese are a natural pairing. And we do wine and food pairings here, but we were not doing a wine and cheese pairing. So of course I raised my hand and I was like, please let me do this. And it was great because obviously it's something that benefits the company as well. But I was really supported in like growing that my own education of cheese, which in turn grew the program for the company. So it was a win-win for everybody. But that's how I got to know you and other local cheesemakers, where I was able to really go to the source, right? To really, it wasn't just about learning and eating good cheese. I was able to then come and visit the creamery and see the cows and, meet Cuba and watch cheese being made. And, all these things that like people don't have that at their disposal. So I was able to really just like embrace my love of cheese into something bigger. And yeah, I mean, I love cheese, right? There's very few cheeses I don't like, but because I work for a company that, Kendall Jackson is a place that people come to from all over the world. And when they come here and they do a wine and food pairing and a tasting, they're here on vacation oftentimes. And then they say, where do I go next? Where should we go next? And for us, we are a community driven business. We're a family owned business, just like you guys, but we're a community driven business. Now, I could be serving cheese from Europe or cheese from Wisconsin or, Vermont, which are delicious, but then I can't send guests there, right? I can't, but when I serve cheese from Point Reyes or from Nicasio Valley or from someone local, I can then extend the story. I can then pass that along to you or someone else within the community of, not just sharing your cheese with them, but then saying, hey, go check them out. Go drive out to the coast tomorrow. It's worth it. Go make an appointment at the Fork and go try their cheese and meet the people there, because it's going to just blow your mind and be an amazing experience. So that's been a great part for me, is that getting to know the families and the cheesemakers and the owners of the companies, but then being able to have this kind of supportive business relationship is, I mean, we're a community.
Absolutely.
And that just continues to extend that.
Well, and it's incredibly appreciated. And kind of, the reason that we're here today is to talk about Women's History Month and what makes us different as I think, and unique and special as women leaders in culinary and food and beverage, especially here in Northern California. So let's talk about that journey for you a little bit, starting with, maybe some female mentors that you've had along the way. Or women that especially inspired you as your career was built?
I mean, I was really fortunate right off the bat to have just my first mentors were from family. My Nana, I'm Italian, and my Nana was always cooking really great food and was open to even me as a really young kid being involved in the kitchen, encouraged it. And so I was comfortable in the kitchen right from the start. And my mom, the same thing. She's always been a great cook. And I don't come from a restaurant family, but cooking was something that was valued in my family, and eating good food and eating really different and interesting food. Also, I mean, we weren't fancy, but I remember there were times for dinner we'd have a cheese board, which now is common, but I'm 47 years old. So imagine as a 10-year-old, your mom is like, yeah, we're going to have, cheese and crackers essentially, but there'd be like liverwurst on the table and really good cheese on the table, and not just, plain crackers. And like I said, we weren't fancy. There wasn't a lot. We didn't have fancy Whole Foods. Like we didn't have those kinds of markets back then, but my mom just like knew the right things to get.
Right.
And so those were like common experiences for me. And I didn't even realize that no other family was really doing that, right? Like I just thought, okay, this is dinner on a Wednesday night. And for my mom, it was probably convenience, right? Both my parents were working, and it was probably like, okay, this is a meal that I know everybody's going to be happy and full and tasty, because that was important, but maybe she didn't have to cook something. So I don't even think they realized, or she realized, that she was imposing this like love of good food from the start. I thought, she just probably thought, okay, well, I'm going to serve what I would want to eat too.
Right.
But that influence from family, I think, that was my foundation for sure. And then, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of really great male mentors. But I think that for me, a lot of the women that I've worked with that have been impactful have been like coworkers. And I think that mentorship is often looked at as someone that is above you, but I believe in that, especially now that I am a boss. And since I've been a boss, I believe in that strongly. But I also think don't discount the people that are right next to you as well. And that's something that I've always looked at. So I really paid attention to and tried to, glean and learn things from the people around me. And oftentimes that's a dishwasher or, a prep cook who has taught me a really great trick that I had never even learned of before. And there have been times that that's happened and I thought, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for years and how have I not been doing it this way? Or, really paying attention that way. And then I will say, when I started working at Jackson Family Wines, there was one woman in particular. Her name is Kelly Jones. She doesn't work for us anymore, but she wasn't even in the culinary department, to tell you the truth. She was in a completely different department, senior VP. And she just, from the second I met her and encountered her in a business way, I thought, okay, this is the way to do it. She was poised. She still is. But in that respect, I remember very clearly encountering her and thinking, man, like she's poised, she's eloquent, but she's powerful. She's confident. But she didn't make anyone here I was this cook, right? Or this person at a lower position. She never made me feel anything less than. She actually did her best to really help promote me and encourage me. And I'm forever appreciative. I was just talking to my husband about her this morning. We just happened to be talking about her. And so it was good timing, because when I think about her, my heart feels so full, because here I was, someone that wasn't even in her department, but every time I had the opportunity to work with her or be around her, she was always really appreciative. She was always a really big supporter of the culinary program in general for us, but especially for me, I always felt like she was really a great proponent for me and my success and really guiding me. And anytime I ever had any questions or needed support, I could call her and she answered the phone every single time.
I love it.
Would give me the best advice and direction, but she's always been really honest with me. And that can be hard, right? Like when the truth is hard, that could be really difficult. But I always appreciated that from her as well as a mentor, that she was really truthful with me, but never in a way that made me feel bad. That actually would make me think, gosh, you know what? Yeah, she's right. This is hard to hear, or it's hard to think about if it was a challenging moment, but it's what I needed from her. And she knew that, and she still did it in a nurturing and kind way.
And how do you try to pay that forward now with, I'm sure people that are coming into your kitchen at very junior levels or maybe entry levels and growing their professional skills and their culinary abilities, so that they can, I mean, you've gone through the ranks yourself. So how do you do that in the kitchen, especially in a very male dominated, back of the house?
Yeah. I mean, that alone has changed. I mean, I'm looking out the kitchen window here, and we have a significant amount of women in our kitchen, which is really great.
Awesome.
I love that, because it really does the energy is just different. And I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just, it is a different energy. And we joke about it in the kitchen when there are days when there are more women in the kitchen versus men. It is a different energy when there's more men in the kitchen. It's just the natural personalities of it. It's actually really cool because every day is different. As far as what you asked of what I really just try to remember, the things that I really loved about the way people have treated me along the way, and the time and patience that people have taken with me. I want to be able to give that back. And I want to be able to teach people, and I want people to, when they leave here, because people do, they move on. My goal is for them to feel like they really got the best of what they possibly could. They learned everything that they could, but that they felt like they were treated really well. And that when they move on to the next place, if they put on their resume Kendall Jackson, that anyone in the county or wherever they go, they know what they're going to get from that person because I helped lead them. They know they're going to get a responsible employee, a respectful employee, someone that's open-minded and willing to learn. Those are the things I try to pass along to anyone in the kitchen, that, it is a growing experience every day, regardless of where you're at in your career. And, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And it's how we move on from them and how we better ourselves from them. And those are the things that I try to remember to pass along, and just having a lot of patience. It's such a cutthroat and really busy industry, right? I have to get to this event and this has to get out, and it's very high energy. And sometimes that can overshadow taking the time in the moment to be patient and really show somebody or help them understand something. And we're always like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so for me, because I am naturally kind of a high energy person too, my team calls me a hummingbird because I'm all over the place. But I have to remind myself, like, stop, pause, and take the time and mentor, take the time and really show somebody and make sure they understand. And then the follow-up of making sure they're complimented, making sure they're rewarded, even with words.
It goes
right?
so far. It goes
You
so
did a
far.
really good job. Or, hey, I know you struggled with this last time. Let's make it again together this time. Okay, like high five or whatever it is, to really acknowledge people and their own journey.
100%. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I personally believe that there is no such thing as work-life balance. I hate that term. It drives me crazy. And partially because I'm a business owner, it's like I do what I do. It's because it's a lifestyle choice, so it's how can I best integrate, my work and my personal life, because they're really, it all bleeds together, and I want to celebrate my work at home, and I want to bring my home stories and my personal experience to work, because I think that makes me, a full human, and makes me look at leadership from a different lens, from the whole person perspective, rather than just, the founder, the owner, etc. So let's talk about that. You're a mom, you have a son. How old is he now?
13.
13. Crazy. How do you integrate, both, being a mom and, raising a young teenager, and the stress of running a kitchen and a culinary program that's much bigger than just one location, I should say, that, you're overseeing several kitchens, several culinary teams working at different places at different times, 7 days a week. How does that work for you?
Some days better than others. But I
Honestly,
do agree. Yeah, I do agree with you. Work-life balance, I've never been able to really understand that as a notion. And again, it's the same reason as you, right? Like, I am extremely committed to my job, and my craft, and my own personal success around that. But also I have an amazing husband and a son and friends and family that I love as well. So that balance, it does ebb and flow. I try to really, in times where I know it's not in season or as busy, I maybe shift gears and am able to spend more time. Maybe I'm doing more things like picking my son up from school on, in February versus June. And I try to really pay attention to those kinds of things. But I agree with you. I work with a team of people. Many of us have been working for Kendall Jackson for years. So it's more than just work, right? We really know each other, and we kind of know each other's business. And most of the time that's actually pretty great, because they know things like my son, Nico, right? Nico will stop by here sometimes and just to say hi, because I've been working a lot. My husband will bring him by and he'll come in the kitchen, say hi, and everyone's like, hey, Nico. And, the same way, like, I know my employees' partners and kids, and not that I'm not saying we're all spending personal time together outside of work. We don't actually do that too often, but we do spend a lot of time together at work. And so I think that we really like each other, and that goes a long way with work. It doesn't make work feel like work as much when you actually enjoy the people that you are working with.
Mhm.
So I think that's part of it. But I mean, there are times where I have to stop and say, okay, you know what, like, what do I really have to do this today? Or can my team handle this? Is this something like, where does that lie for me as far as value? And I've learned this over the years too, that I've gotten to a position where I can pick and choose a little bit. Like, I don't have to be at every event. I have an amazing team of people that can go and represent just as well as I can. So let them go and do that sometimes, because they should be doing that, because I'm not doing my job if I'm not letting them do that.
Absolutely.
Not only for them to get the props of it, but like, I'm not going to be here forever. Who's
Mhm.
next in line behind me as well? So part of it is growing the team and being able to step away from that myself sometimes and let the team grow and do their thing. I'm also really fortunate that I have an amazing and a fairly large team of people. So, that helps me to helps allow me to have work-life balance, because that team is so supportive and because they're so talented and because they are just as committed. So
Mhm.
all of those things help.
Yeah.
But I love coming to work. I really, I love working. I love coming to work. I feel so rewarded from it. And there are times where I wish my personality weren't so intertwined in that. I have moments where I'm like, gosh, in my next life, maybe I should pick a job that's more Monday through Friday and I don't take any work. I mean, I think about every so often, I think about like people that don't ever have to take their work home with them, or that really, like, they are done at 5:30 and that's it. And there are moments where I have jealousy around that, but then I wouldn't have these other parts. Like, then maybe my passion or my love of my job wouldn't be as deep because of that. And I don't know if that's true or not, because this is the only industry I've ever done. It's the only thing I've ever done. But I think that part of why I am so successful and why I'm able to show my team that success is because of that commitment to working hard.
Well, and obviously that was instilled in you, not just in prior work experience, but at home as a child. And I really believe that work ethic is something that it's a life skill, and it's something that's ingrained in you, before you're even conscious of it.
Yeah, I will say this, and it took me until I was probably in my early 30s in my career where I had a real conscious, like, okay, pause, step back. How do you want your career to look from here on out as far as work-life balance? And I really did have to make choices around that.
Well, and as a woman who you knew you wanted to have a family, I mean, in your industry, those are some tough decisions.
Yes. That's exactly why I did it, because I knew I had gotten so deep into work and I loved it so much, but it's all I was. Right. All I was Tracey the chef. And I loved that, but I wasn't. All of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I had lost this other side. I'm not Tracey, the good partner. I'm not Tracey. I wasn't feeling good about how the time I spent with my family or my friends, or I wasn't well-rounded. And so I had to regroup. And I think that that's the hard thing about the industry, is that as there's this thing around the culinary industry where you're as good as the time you put in, or what you sacrifice, how much you give up. I remember that as a young cook sitting at the bar. I was working in New York, and you'd sit around the bar at the end of the day with all the cooks from all the restaurants around, and it would be like bragging rights. Oh yeah, I just worked 14 days straight, and there was like 6 doubles in there. Yep, I missed my cousin's wedding last weekend, and that was somehow like this rite of passage, like
badge of honor.
This badge of honor for what you sacrificed. And I really subscribed to that for a long time. But then I got to a point where I thought, listen, there can be some balance between this. Yes, there is. Yes, part of what the profession is working weekends, and there's sacrifice in that. Weekends and evenings, there's a level of sacrifice in that. But I knew I didn't have to sacrifice everything.
Is there an attempt, do you think, to break that cycle going forward?
Yes.
With the rise of, people worried about mental health, especially in that industry, and addiction and so forth, all the vices that come with being in the kitchen and working late nights, and, in this sense of camaraderie with these people that only understand, what you've gone through. How is that real? Because I've heard from a lot of chefs, well, I went through it when I was, an upstart. So therefore all the, you know, the Sues in my kitchen are having to do it too, and my line cooks, and, you know, I want them to go through the same, you know, turmoil that I went through.
I don't subscribe to that. I know what I went through. It was of the time. I knew what I was signing up for. I was never mistreated. Was I overworked? Yes. But I also never stood up for myself on it. You know, again, there was an expectation around it. I did eventually get to a point where I call it stood up for myself, but that was me making a change for myself. That also took enough time for me to be confident in my own abilities, knowing, listen, I know what I can bring to the table. I know the kind of employee I am when I am present. And I know my value. So if someone else doesn't realize my value because they think I need to be working 3 more hours or whatever that might be, or not pay me right, I got to a point where I knew I had to be confident in my own self-worth to be able to do those things the right way. I do not expect, nor do I impose upon my team what I came up in, because I just don't think that it doesn't have to be that way. It just doesn't. It simply doesn't have to be that way. Do I expect them to work hard? Of course. And are they super flexible with their schedules? Absolutely. Are we working 10 or 12-hour days? Sometimes yes. Sometimes yes. But no one for me ever, when I was coming up, said like, okay, yeah, you worked 6 days this week because we needed it. Can I give you an extra day off next week? Or you know what? You worked an extra day, go home early. Those are the kinds of things that I try to think about for my team. I know that there are times that they're going to give extra because it's what the business demands and I can't change the business, but I try to balance it out for them. I try to make sure they know I'm acknowledging that you are doing something extra. How can I do something extra for you at some point?
Unfortunately, the club that you belong to, as a woman leading a large kitchen, it's small. And I know you're really great. You've many great women chef friends. Do you guys talk about this? Do you guys talk about how we can, you know, create these cultures in kitchens that are different from the ones we grew up in, and we can really make the difference together as a group?
Yeah, we definitely do. And I think that just the first step is doing exactly that, talking about it, right? Having this open dialogue with your peers around like, yeah, this is, you know, and reminding each other like, yeah, this is exactly what we should be doing. We should be supporting each other. It should be different. It shouldn't be the same way it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. That doesn't make any sense for a myriad of reasons. So why would we not wanting to be continuing to be, you know, forward thinking? And it's all about taking care of your people, right? Like that's what the goal is. And so if you're not taking care of your staff, you're not going to have a successful business anyway. So you could look at it from pulling on your heartstrings or from a business perspective. Truthfully, it doesn't even have to be about like, I want to be a good person. I mean, it should be, but let's say it's coming from a perspective of business. If you overwork your employees, or if you have employees that are unhappy, you're never going to get the best out of them anyway. So then what?
Right. And then you're constantly training and retraining, and the churn is killing your labor. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when you put those, and in like, luckily those two things can go together. I can, you know, you can say, I want to have a successful business. I also want to treat people well. They're going to intertwine and both go in a positive direction.
100%. 100%. Last but not least, what would you say to yourself 20 years ago? If you know, what's that nugget or that piece of advice or, you know, cautionary tale that you would want to kind of impart on your younger self to help you in the journey that you've gone through?
I would, you know, I would tell myself to just be, you know, be kind to myself a little bit more. Like, you know, don't beat yourself up so much that, you know, I wish I would have, the lesson that I eventually learned, I wish I would have learned a little bit sooner about like having that self-confidence, and not just cooking, but the whole picture of it. And to just, you know, be patient with yourself, because hard work really does pay off. Being a good person really does pay off. It does. And it sometimes may not feel like that in the moment when you're being passed over for something, or you're not being acknowledged for work that you've done, or when you feel like you've just put all your effort in and nobody's acknowledging it. Those are really hard and defeating moments that we all experience. And so, you know, I would just remind myself, like, do what you know is right. Do what you know is in your heart and soul. of the kind of person and the kind of employee and professional you want to be. And don't forget that. Just stay the course on that and pay attention to all the things around you, good and bad, because you can learn from it all.
Absolutely can. That's so great. And then it all comes down to relationships, right? Because if you're kind, you're going to build the relationships and the network of support that you need to, you know, to grow your career and keep yourselves stimulated and happy doing what you're doing.
I am fortunate to have people like you in my life, not just because you run a business that makes good cheese. Like, to me, that's secondary.
Yeah.
You're just a rad, amazing woman.
We
right?
like each other. It's
exactly. So it's like, it may have started off as like, you've got this great product, but that's almost become secondary.
Right.
And that's pretty awesome that is out in the universe for people like us that just, we're good people and we want to, you know, be around other really good, cool, positive people.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, this whole series that we're doing is about women supporting women. And this is just another example of, you know, it's really comes down to, hey, this is a way for you and I as friends to spend a little bit of time together because we're both so busy. So
seriously. Yes. Selfishly, I mean, I wish it were with a glass of wine.
Well, yes,
this is better than nothing.
That will come soon. That will come soon.
And
I want to invite everybody to check out your fabulous, gorgeous book. It doesn't just need to sit on a coffee table. Ours is actually dog-eared here. Season celebrating recipes from the wine country and specifically Kendall Jackson. And visit the KJ Wine Center. Go check out their farm to table dinners that start in June.
June this year.
June, and they run every month through harvest.
October.
Yeah,
through October.
And they're fabulous and delicious. And Tracey, always love chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah. Nice to see you today, Jill.
Okay. All right, I think we're good. And thanks for the minute.